We're really excited to welcome Leslie Grossman, author of Link Out, How to Turn Your Network into a Chain of Lasting Connections. Leslie is the co-founder of the Women's Leadership Exchange, as well as author of Sellsation, How Companies Can Capture Today's Hottest Market. She's won numerous awards, including the President's Leadership Award, National Association of Women Business Owners, the Matrix Award for Westchester Women in Communications, as well as being named Entrepreneur of the Year by Fashion Group International. That only names a few. We are thrilled to welcome you, Leslie. Thanks so much for being on with us today.
So excited to be here.
We just want to mention quickly, Leslie has graciously offered to give away a copy of Link Out. So after the broadcast, head over to BookTrib.com and enter to win. I want to first talk, Leslie, about Link Out. Can you tell us about the book and what led you to write it?
Well, what really led me to write it was social media and LinkedIn, to be honest. Everybody's, yes, everybody started communicating so much through social media, through email, through all the virtual things. And I noticed that people suddenly were stopping the face-to-face communication. And it concerned me because people were also complaining that they were not having the kinds of relationships with people in business and for their career that I had experienced previous to all this online communication.
Right.
So what I realized is LinkedIn is a great tool, but you need to link out face to face if you're going to make it effective. So that's
Absolutely.
what led me to the book.
Okay. In the book, you discuss building strong long-term connections, which will result in successful and fulfilling career. You suggest that this is way more than just passing along a business card. How do you advise that the reader really go about this and make it successful?
Well, it's a new way of networking. People have been networking face to face for a long time and continue to do it, but they're quick. Those are quick things. Passing out cards, like you said, that does not make a trusted relationship. So one of the first things I advise is when you go to a networking event, don't try to meet as many people as possible and come away with a pile of business cards.
Okay.
Meet 2 or 3 people, and then from that have a good conversation, and then plan to meet them face to face afterwards.
Okay.
That's how a real relationship begins.
Okay. One of my questions was actually about LinkedIn, and it's so bogged down with people who are just profiles. They just kind of exist, and not everyone is actually even active. How do you suggest we become more active on LinkedIn and use it more to our advantage?
Well, I think first of all, the profile is really important. I think that, but the profile should share what your vision is, what's important to you, more about who you are as a real person, so people get a little bit more depth. And then if you see that the someone that you're connected with, or someone who introduces you, has something really in common with you, I would suggest that you send them a message that you have something in common and you would like to meet them in person, assuming they're in the same city. So take the LinkedIn and take it and link out. So the first step is LinkedIn.
Right.
But you don't do that with everybody. You do that selectively, where you really can see that you have something in common, either to do business together or a common career goal or something that really relates you.
Okay. We have an interesting question from Connor who asks, can you talk a little bit about the term relationship-based economy and what that means specifically?
Yeah, I've heard that phrase used a lot, and there's a lot of different meanings to it. But to me, I would say that relationships really are the start of business. And so it is the driver in our economy, quite frankly, whether it's a customer or whether it's as a business owner or professional, you are creating business from relationships. Relationships, though, are not just business cards. They're getting to know people or serving them in a very positive way. So I think it's business being driven through relationships.
Okay. We're also, the digital world is also so chock full of people, like you said, looking to get ahead, but sometimes they're, even from my own experience, they're not necessarily on the up and up. How do you, or who they claim to be, how do you know who's truly looking to make that connection and looking to help you and themselves, and those people who are maybe misrepresenting themselves a little?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about how I mean, one of the ways is also to use LinkedIn to see who they're connected to that you have in common.
Okay.
And I think that's really an important thing because then you can go back to the person that you have in common and ask them about that person that you may be uncertain of and get their recommendation. If they don't know them, well, then of course it's no help. And we have to be careful now because I think people should be more careful about connecting online with, it's not about anymore having thousands of connections. If they're not meaningful connections, if they're not someone that you really have something in common with, or you could see having some kind of business or career relationship with, we shouldn't just be connecting with everybody because then it really takes the meaning away from it. And you can't really even check people out.
Absolutely. You know, you've worked with some of the biggest companies in the world on marketing strategies and networking. Can you talk a little bit about your background and what led you to this career?
Sure. I mean, I think every career is an evolution. And when you're young, it's hard to see that. As you get older, like me, I can look back and see how one thing led to another. I started with a very small business when I was in my 20s. And little by little, you know, I had a marketing company. Through my connections, through the people that I knew, I gained credibility, and that led me to do business with bigger companies. When I look back, I realized it was all about trusted relationships that have propelled my career from one place, from one level to another. And that's another reason why I'm so passionate about it. When I did research for the book, I looked at other historic figures as well as more current leaders, and it's the same true for them. Most people's careers are truly driven by relationships, as was mine.
Okay. And that importance of collaboration, I think maybe goes hand in hand with that, not only the relationship, but then collaborating with that person and taking that relationship one step forward. Why is it so important to have this team around you? People who, you know, so it's not always the one person team to make this career. You have a collaboration of people. What makes that so important and successful?
You know, no one can do anything really important alone. And again, like I said, if you think you can, you're going to be very surprised. Maybe you can write your book by yourself in a room. But quite frankly, if you haven't had experiences with other people, it's going to be a really boring book. So I think collaboration is really at the key of everything. And the other thing I want to add about collaboration is it's not about what people can do for you. It's really what you can do for others first. There's a lot of books out there, in addition to my own, that actually support that. I like to talk about give and take. It's the givers, people that are looking to pay it forward, give and help other people, that usually benefit the most in their careers.
Do you think, so going back to the digital side of things, and Mel is actually asking this question, do you think Twitter helps or hurts this idea of relationships and collaboration, and what are your thoughts on the social media side of things?
Yeah, that's a really good question, which I don't really have the answer to. I don't want to be negative about Twitter. I think it's great to get ideas out there and link to different things. I'm not so sure, or let's say the jury is still out on my mind about what Twitter actually does for relationships. Yes, if you go back and look at a person's profile, and then you take it into another direction, I guess it could help.
Right.
Of the social media that's out there now, I would say more LinkedIn, even Facebook, and now starting with the visual things like Instagram and things like that, you begin to know more about a person's life and their background. So I'm not so sure about Twitter, but it certainly is a good way to get messages out there to people.
Right. That's true. Can you talk a little bit about Leslie Grossman leadership, and how it's grown over the years and how you developed it?
Well, Leslie Grossman leadership is really the kind of, let's say, the base of the tree for me, and with lots of branches going off of it. Um, so it's really grown, and I didn't know what else to call it, so I put my name on it. I just am so I'm so committed to helping people become leaders of their lives because I think each of us is a leader and we have the potential to be better and better leaders. And relationship building is one of the branches of Leslie Grossman leadership, which I think is a critical branch of it. I also do a lot of coaching of executives, of CEOs, and career professionals, which goes off of it. And I also teach people to coach their employees because coaching, instead of telling people what to do, helping them come up with the ideas, helping everyone become a leader, I think is the secret to success and for having a vibrant economy and for people feeling fulfilled and happy with their lives. So that's kind of
Absolutely.
how Leslie Grossman leadership went off into different directions and books and things like that.
What do you find is the reaction, when you're brought in as a coach and the business person or owner or CEO is looking to get someone to tell them how to approach their employees or what to say to their employees? When you give them your initial thoughts on it. Do you find that there's ever kickback or they don't like the answers you're giving them? Is there ever anything like, oh, well, I'm the boss, I can't do that? Or is it usually a positive reaction?
Well, one of the things about being a coach, and this is important for people to understand, a coach and a consultant are two different things. A
Okay.
consultant tells people what to do. A coach has a way of getting the answers out of the person they're coaching. So,
Okay.
and it's very powerful when the person comes to the realization that they actually have the answer themselves by the
Right.
coach asking the right questions. The other thing that's very powerful that I believe in, and that is peer advisory boards, putting
Okay.
people together where that's where they can also get the advice of other peers, which have
Right.
that are experienced. And one of the things I do is I am also a Vistage coach and chair, and I actually facilitate a group of CEOs where they advise each other. And I believe in that for every kind of group because peers can be tremendously helpful to each other. And often people will listen more to their peers than they might to a consultant.
Absolutely.
So it's like, when you hear it from other people and you say, oh, yeah, that's something for me to consider. Um,
Right.
and that and with those peers, by the way, you've built a trusted relationship. That is, you've
Okay.
linked out to all those people. When you get to know them, you begin to trust them and you listen. When you listen carefully, which is the way you build a trusted relationship, you also get great advice, which you can consider. So that's a
Okay.
very powerful tool. And it fits with the whole link out base, relationship
Yeah,
building aspect.
absolutely. Um, Mel is asking, you have an integrated marketing agency. What made you want to start that?
A really good question. Well, I had really had a lot of experience in the PR business, but there was new media coming, and this is even before all the social media started. And I realized that one particular kind of marketing is not enough alone, and that we need to integrate various things. Well, you could collaborate with another agency and do that, or you could try to have some of that all under one roof. I chose to have a lot of it under one roof. That didn't mean I didn't collaborate with others. I did, but I just felt that what we could do would be more effective if I could put a group of people, just like an advisory board, but a group of experts under one roof, and they had one was good at advertising, one was good at positioning, one was good at PR, and they all could sit down and work together. They could come up with something very, very powerful. And that's what led me to it. And I saw how other companies did it. And so I learned from that. Have always learned from watching and reading what other people are doing, and then sometimes coming up with my own ideas, but always learning from others' experience as well.
Very interesting. And out of that has also come B2 Women. Is that correct? That's a division of that marketing agency.
Right.
And you started that in 2000. It specifically caters to the companies who target female entrepreneurs, women business women. Can you tell us about that division a little more? How it reaches the female executives?
Right, and I don't actually do that anymore, but that was the basis for the book Sellsation, which I wrote before Link Out. And what I realized was marketing to women, particularly professional women, like yourself, is different than just marketing to all women. All women are not alike, you know?
True.
And they all have and when you're working and you're in your career, you have limited time. So you reach, that's right. You reach women that are in their careers, even if they're moms or married, you have to reach them in a different way. And so I developed an expertise in that because I was so active in women's business associations myself that I really learned so much about what got their attention and what they paid attention to and what motivated them to do business. So because of that, I was able to work with companies like American Express who wanted to reach women business owners and executives. So that is how I formed the B2 Women, Business to Women division. Today, I think it still is needed, but now we are looking at so many different combinations that it's really people need to be customizing their marketing almost.
Right. Absolutely.
And actually, digital marketing helps you do that.
Okay. How do you have any tips in that at all for the executives out there?
Well, one thing that I would say is, and whether it's executives or business owners, a lot of times we think that people want what we want, and we just assume that, but we're not always right. And so, would you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think we have to know what our customer or our client wants, and we need to ask them. And when it doesn't agree, if we ask enough of them and we find out what they want is different than what we want, we can't be stubborn about it and say, hey, we know best. We need to listen. And I think that that's a big word for all of us is the word listen. Because whether you're marketing or whether you're building a trusted relationship, we need to be listening to people. We need to be asking questions, which, by the way, I mentioned is what coaching is, asking questions.
Yep.
The more we are curious about other people, the more successful we will be at building relationships and reaching our customers. So curiosity, I think, is a big part of being effective, an effective communicator and being effective in business.
Absolutely.
So that's
speaking of those,
even asking your boss.
or your boss asking you, either or.
Exactly, in both directions.
Yeah. Speaking of the advisory boards, you are vice chair of the Global Advisory Board for Impact Leadership 21. Can you tell us about that movement and how you got involved?
Yes, this is a really important movement, impactleadership21.com, by the way. And one of the big initiatives that Impact Leadership started, it's founded by a woman who's a permanent representative at the United Nations, Janet Salazar. And one of the movements that was started was a program called Conversations with Men. And this program brings men who are advocates for women together in a program where they share and are openly discussed with a very interactive program. What is it that helps women move up in the corporate world? They share their own experience of what they've seen successful women do, and that what they've seen women that don't seem to move so quickly, what is it they're not doing that they should be doing? And it's been very powerful to help women notice that maybe there's something that women are doing or not doing that could move them up. Instead of putting 100% of the burden on the corporation, to level the playing field, we have to each look at ourselves and say, yeah, it is the corporation's responsibility, but what role am I playing? Am I asking for the raise? Am I sitting down with my boss and discussing how can I get that particular job? Do I have a vision for my career? A lot of people don't have vision of where they want to go. And that's actually, I talk about it in the book as well, because when we network or when we link out to people, how people can help us if they know where we want to go. But if we don't know where we want to go, how can anyone help us?
Absolutely.
So impact leadership, and a lot of times we just sort of, sometimes women and young men kind of sit there and expect to be recognized for their talents. Not to say that they won't be, but if you have your eye on something, if you have a goal, we have to share it, and we need to have goals.
Absolutely.
And if we keep it to ourselves, it's a secret, and it's not going to help us. It's not going to help other people help us get where we want to go.
Definitely.
So that impact, I kind of went off away from Impact Leadership 21, but it is a common thing that I learned from listening to the male panel, that a lot of times women don't really express their desire of where they want to move up, and they don't ask for help in getting there. Whereas the men do.
Yeah, definitely. And then the Women's Leadership Exchange plays quite a large role in building successful businesswomen. That is something that you founded, correct?
Yes, I did back in 2002.
And how has that kind of shaped your success and your opinion on female businesswomen?
I mean, I think one of the things that we sought to do successfully with Women's Leadership Exchange was bringing women together under the same roof with different kinds of businesses and also executive women, and encouraging them to be willing to share what their needs were and where they needed support, and not always having to look good and in control all the time. And then saying, we're all here together. Let's look at how we can help each other. And again, my book was an outgrowth of that as well. It was saying, you know what? Successful people don't do it alone. And Women's Leadership Exchange put hundreds of women together to have them be authentic, really talk about what's going on in your life, in your business, where you feel stymied, and get the advice and help from other women. Like, the guys had the boys network, the women needed the girls network. But I will say that today, now in 2015, about 2016, I believe that men and women need to collaborate together to support each other.
Absolutely.
I think it is helpful. The guys are always going to be watching the games together and doing that. And I think the women should also have their moments when they can share things, because their lives have certain things. But when it comes to being in business, we need to work together. We need to share and collaborate, both male and female. And that's how we're going to be the most successful and help our businesses and our careers go to the heights we want them to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that. And this is business, whether we're talking profit or not for profit. The Women's Leadership Exchange works with both, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And are there any? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if anybody's listening that is involved in a nonprofit or leads a nonprofit, I think one of the things that's important, just because it's called a nonprofit, doesn't mean that it shouldn't try to be profitable, meaning
Right.
it should it should act like a business and it needs to be a business. It's just at the end of the year you're supposed to have spent all your money on your
Right.
cause. But
Right.
if you don't operate on the same principles that businesses do, then and build the kinds of relationships that you need to have in your career, you're not going to get the funds that you need to really realize that vision and the passion that you have for that nonprofit cause. So I think we
Absolutely.
all have to act like business people, no matter whether it's a cause or not. In fact, with a cause, in some cases, it can be even harder. So
Absolutely.
that's just something I wanted to add.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are there differences in going about networking, whether you're, depending on the type of business, profit, not for profit? Have you seen differences or difficulties on one side or the other?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think that the main thing with a nonprofit is because they're asking often for funds, um, people tend to ask without showing the interest in the other person and looking for where the connection is. And I think that if you're fundraising for a nonprofit, you have to be just as interested in your customer or your customer to be, which is your
Right.
donor, as you would if you're selling a product. It can't be in one direction. You can't just expect people to give to you. You have to look at how are you going to enrich their life? How are you going to make their life better? And where can you find the common ground where they will want to support you?
Right.
And maybe it's part of the community and meeting other like-minded people that they can network with. There you have to, but it's important to look for that if you're
Okay.
going to be super successful.
Definitely. There's a really interesting question here, and I know a lot of people don't like to talk about the negative side of things, but I think it's also important to point out. Connor is asking, what are some habits that are bad for business? And I think that's really interesting, to point that out, as well as give, advice on it.
Um, Habits that are bad for business. Okay, well, I could probably come up with about 100. Well, and if he's asking in relationship to building relationships, which is since that's the theme here, I'll give you some
Okay,
habits.
that
One
sounds
of them
good.
is having a conversation with somebody and always looking down at your telephone, at
Yes,
your smartphone. That is a very bad, whether you're in a meeting, whether you're at dinner, whether you're having a cup of
absolutely.
coffee, or if you're just at a networking event. If you're standing there and you glancing down at your phone, you're immediately telling people they're not important. That your smartphone is more important than they are. So that's a
Absolutely.
bad habit, and that's a habit a lot of us have now.
Hmm.
It's like everybody's looking at their phones.
Yep.
And they don't even know what's there yet. They're just, looking. So I think there's a lot of etiquette issues
Okay.
with technology that can be bad habits that can affect your business.
Okay.
I've seen people go to an interview and actually do that, believe it or not.
Uh,
That phone needs to be turned off, put
yes.
away, and give that person undivided attention.
Yes.
So I would
Engage.
say that, yeah, engage. And another one in that is when somebody sends you a message, an email, or a text, answer them.
Yes.
Even if you don't know the answer, even if you don't say, oh, well, gee, I might know that in a few days. I'll get back to them in a few days.
Right.
By the few days, they've already thought you're rude because it would be better to just say, let me get back to you on that than say nothing
Yes.
because
Absolutely.
people get, so there's two habits I think that people have that are not particularly good for business.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, for with so many things changing, the digital world, and it's honestly daily that things are changing in business. Do you have any leadership tips for 2016 for those people moving forward or looking to really make it happen in the new year?
Yes, here's my number one leadership tip. is to look at how much time you're spending on social media. And out of that time, take at least 2 hours a week that you subtract from that to meet face to face with people and have a real relationship where you can be asking them about themselves, being curious about them, and then sharing with those people your vision for your career or your business.
Right.
If you do that, you will begin to build what I call your own entourage. People that want to support you. And once you have that relationship, think of that person. If you see an article online and you think they'd be interested, email it to them. Let them know you're thinking about them. Look for ways that you might be able to help them by either introducing them to someone or an article or some way. So I would say if you want to be a leader and grow your leadership, begin building that entourage of people around you that will support you to move forward with your business and your career. That is the number one tip. And I think don't stop doing social media, but try to withdraw somewhat and put more time into the face-to-face relationship.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you for those tips. We have unfortunately come to the end of our time here with our Spreecast, and I want to remind everyone, please head over to booktrib.com. Leslie is giving away a copy of Link Out, and you can enter to win there. Thank you so much, Leslie. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Well, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me on BookTrib.
Thank you, and good luck, everyone, with starting that business. Have a great day.
Okay.